When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. This ancient proverb is more than just a clever saying. It's a story whispered from generation to generation, a lesson forged in fire. It's a story of what happens when ordinary people, seemingly small and insignificant, refuse to be broken by fear. It is the wisdom that teaches us that even the most powerful oppressors can be brought down by the collective strength of the many. This is the story of a village, a warlord, and a single powerful idea. Welcome to the Afro Tales with Kemi, where ancient legends meet with modern storytelling. So sit back, open your heart, and walk with me through today's tale, told, as always, the African way. I am Kemi Iwalesi. Long ago, in a green valley where the rolling hills kissed the sky, there was a village called Okuta Ile. The name meant rock of the house, but it was a place of soft earth and gentle spirits. The days were marked by the sound of life, children's laughter echoing in the dusty lanes, the rhythmic call and response songs of farmers tilling their fields, and the steady comforting beats of women pounding yams by the communal fire. Life was simple, yes, but it was full. It was a place of community where every neighbor was family and every harvest was a shared triumph. But peace, especially a deep and abiding peace, does not always last. Sometimes a shadow falls over the land. Into the heart of Okuta Ile came a man whose very name carried a weight of terror, Oba Arogun, the Warlord. He was not a lion of fur and claws, but in greed, cruelty, and unyielding power, he was fiercer than any beast. He arrived with an army of hardened soldiers, their spears glinting like malice in the sun. He claimed the village as his own, not by right, but by force. The people of Okuta Ile, who had known only the peaceful rhythm of the seasons, now felt the cold, hard reality of conquest. Arrogun's rule began with a simple, brutal demand: heavy taxes. He didn't want their gratitude, he wanted their wealth. His soldiers marched in every harvest season to claim the best of everything: the plumpest yams, the juiciest maize, the fattest goats. The food they took was meant to feed the village's children, to sustain their elderly, to fool the farmers for the next planting. Now it was stripped away, taken straight from their mouths. The people could only watch in silence, their heads bowed, their spirits sinking under the weight of this new tyranny. But for a man like Arogun, a full belly and a growing treasure chest were not enough. He was a man who feasted on fear itself. He sent his guards to take daughters of the village, young girls, some barely women, torn from their mothers' arms. They were to be servants in his palace, but everyone knew their fate was a life of hardship and humiliation. Families wept, their grief an audible heart-wrenching wail that filled the night sky. The bonds of family, the very foundation of their community, were being ripped apart. Yet, no one dared to resist. The price was too high, the risk too great. Some brave souls did try. A farmer, his back straight with defiance, refused to hand over his harvest. He was beaten in front of his wife and children, a stark and brutal lesson for all who watched. A young hunter, his heart full of rage, raised his bow. Before the arrow could leave the string, he was chained and dragged through the streets like a common animal, his courage mocked by the cheers of Arogun's men. Each act of resistance, no matter how small, ended in blood and public humiliation. Fear, cold and heavy, wrapped around the village like an unshakable chain, and hope seemed to be just a forgotten memory. But when fear becomes the air you breathe, the human spirit in its endless resilience finds a way to adapt. One evening, under the great baobab tree, the oldest and wisest tree in the village, the elders and the villagers gathered. This was not a meeting of despair. It was a gathering of souls who had reached their breaking point. At the center of the circle, her face a roadmap of a long and challenging life, sat Mama Ifeoluwa. She was the oldest woman in the village, her eyes sharp with wisdom of generations. The silence was thick with shared pain, but she cut through it with her voice. "My children," she said, her voice a calm river in the storm, "do not forget the wisdom of our ancestors. Alone, a single thread of a spider's web is fragile. A gust of wind, a falling leaf, and it is gone. But when the spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. We are not just individual threads. We are a family, a village, a people. Alone, we are nothing against Arogun. But together, we are strong enough to end his reign. He thinks he has broken us. Let us show him that he has only brought us closer, weaving a web he can never escape." And so, a plan began to take shape. The farmers, who once hoarded their meager harvest in fear, now became the village's silent heroes. At night, under the cover of darkness, they moved through the lanes with baskets of food hidden beneath cloaks and shawls. A plump yam for the family of the beaten farmer, a gourd of maize for the mother whose daughter was taken. They made sure no child went hungry, no family stood alone in their suffering. The sharing of food was not just an act of kindness, it was a quiet act of defiance, a way of proving that Arogun would not starve their solidarity. The weavers, with their nimble fingers and sharp minds, began to stitch cloth with hidden codes. The beautiful patterns that they had always created were now filled with meaning. A pattern that looked like a blooming flower meant a meeting was to be held at the village spring. A series of small stars woven into a border warned that soldiers were patrolling a certain road. The cloth became a secret language that only the people of Okuta Ile understood. It was a network of communication, a silent rebellion unfolding in plain sight, right under the noses of Arogun's guards. The hunters, skilled in reading the land, now used their knowledge for a different kind of prey. They drew maps in the sand with sticks, their detailed knowledge of the forest paths and the hidden trails now marking the movements of the enemy. They traced the lion's paths, noting the places where his guards were weakest, their patrols thinnest. They created ambush points and escape routes. Their knowledge, once used for providing game, now became the sharpest weapon of all, a silent strategy for liberation. And the women? The women. They had always filled the marketplace with song, their voices rising and falling in beautiful harmony as they went about their daily chores. But now, they hid secret messages in their melodies. A joyful, fast-paced song told people when to gather. A slow, melancholic tune was a warning to hide. And a song of praise and thanksgiving, usually sung at celebrations, was a call to strike. Their voices, once just sounds of everyday life, now carried the sweet melody of freedom in every note. The web was not just being woven, it was being sung into existence. Oba Arogun sat on his throne, feasting on roasted goats and drinking the village's finest palm wine. His laughter was loud, his belly was full, and his mind was clouded by arrogance. He saw the bowed heads and the quiet streets, and he believed the people were broken, scattered, powerless. He believed he had won. He did not know that the very food he ate was taken from people who were secretly feeding their own. He did not know that the music he heard in the distance was not sound of submission, but a hum of tightening web. He thought he was untouchable, the mighty lion in his den. He was completely unaware that the villagers were weaving a web around him, and that it was already beginning to tighten. On the night of the new moon, a night so dark you could not see your own hand in front of your face, the first thread was pulled. The farmers who had quietly stockpiled old carts, logs, and dry grass acted first. They rolled the carts onto the main roads leading in and out of the village and set them ablaze. The fires roared to life, casting long dancing shadows. The roads were blocked. The lion was trapped in his own cage, unable to call for reinforcements from his distant palace. Then came the women, torches in hand. They marched through the night, not with weapons, but with the most powerful force they possessed, their voices. They sang the song of their ancestors, songs of courage, songs of unity, songs of righteous defiance. The guards, startled by the sight and sound, found themselves unable to act. Their spears and shields were useless against a force that carried no weapons, only a unified will. The sound of their voices rose louder than any fear, louder than the crackle of the fires, a living testament to their unbroken spirit. The hunters moved next, emerging from the shadows. They did not attack with arrows. They used their knowledge of the land to confuse and disorient the guards, sending them down false paths and into dead ends. And soon, Oba Arogun, who had thought himself so powerful, found himself surrounded. Not by an army, but by a web of farmers, weavers, women, and hunters. The mighty lion, once so untouchable, stood helpless as the web of his people pulled tight around him. He looked around and saw not a defeated populace, but a unified force ready to reclaim their freedom. But the people of Okuta Ile were not done. They did not seek to kill him with the violence he had shown them. Instead, the weavers came forward with strong ropes made of vines and the very cloth they had used to send secret messages. The farmers, whose crops he had stolen, bound his hands. The hunters, whose paths he had disrespected, bound his feet. With each loop of the rope, they were not just restraining a man, They were tying up the very idea of tyranny. They were making the proverb literal. The united spider webs were now physically tying up the lion. And then came the final act of their collective strength. The women whose daughters had been taken, the families who had gone hungry, they did not strike him. They spoke. One by one, they stood before him and declared his crimes against the community. "You took my daughter," one woman said, her voice steady. "You stole the food from our children's mouths," said a farmer. This was a trial, not an execution. It was the community healing its wounds by speaking its truth, restoring balance by holding power accountable. The judgment was swift and clear. Mama Ifeoluwa stepped forward. "Oba Arogun," she declared, her voice echoing the wisdom of the ages. "Your reign ends not with your death, but with your exile. You are banished from these lands. We banish you so that the shadow of your memory will never again darken our valley. We banish you to show that our strength is not in mimicking your cruelty, but in upholding our humanity." And so the defeated lion was cast out, left to wander the wilderness, a prisoner of his own emptiness, while the village of Okuta Ile began to heal. For the first time in many years, the air in Okuta Ile felt different. It was lighter, filled with sweet scents of freedom and justice. The villagers poured into the main square, laughing, crying, embracing. Children danced around the bonfire, their faces illuminated by the flames of the light of a new beginning. The lion was no more, not because he was dead, but because he was gone, and the people had proven that their unity was the ultimate power. And beneath the great baobab tree, the place where it all began, Mama Ifeoluwa's words echoed again, carried on the wind. When the spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. This wisdom, born of pain and suffering, had become their victory. It was no longer a proverb to be remembered, but a truth to be lived. And so, remember this: alone, we are but threads, easily broken, swept aside by the winds of power. A single injustice can seem insurmountable. A single hardship can feel overwhelming. But woven together, thread by thread, person by person, we're a web stronger than any lion. When we share our burdens, when we use our unique talents to help one another, when we stand as one, we are not just a collection of individuals. We are a force. We are unbreakable. What lions are you facing? And who are the spiders in your life that you can unite with?
Welcome to Afro Tales, where every story leaves a mark on your soul. Please subscribe, comment, and share this video with a friend.